Welcome back to In the Vault. I'm here with Matt, Ryan Parmenter, and Ryan Bokina, and we're going to start by talking about some the Super Bowl storyline. So, Bokina, you want to start off with your take? Your
Like
takes on some things going on,
Some things
Yeah.
going on. Well,
revolving around the game.
look, the two last teams I would actually want to see in the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna lie. I really, don't want to see the Chiefs
No
in the
bias
Super Bowl
allowed.
again. No bias. No, I'm just saying. I just
That was
don't want to
definitely
watch
biased.
these
That was
teams.
definitely
I just don't want.
Super
I just
Bowl
don't want
of
to
all-
see these
worst
teams
Super
again.
Bowl of all
I
time.
don't want to see these teams. No bias.
Lions,
I just don't want to see these teams.
Lions,
I'd
Lions.
much rather see the Lions.
Lions,
I would.
Ravens, Lions,
But
Ravens.
No.
no, I think that this is just it's a Super Bowl rematch. I mean, I don't know. It could go either way, but I'm leaning towards the Chiefs. Just since they have more experience, I think the
I'm
Niners
just not
will
going to go
fold.
too deep into what you like about the
Oh,
game
okay.
strategy.
Well,
just around.
I just think
Yeah.
Purdy will fold under pressure. So.
Okay, Parm.
I mean, really, what other thing is it? I don't really want to talk about it, but what other thing is there to talk about except for Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to talk about it, but I believe
Over under how many times the camera-
15.
Yeah,
Over
okay.
15. Over
Yeah.
15.
Okay.
But
They're actually. that would
but
be fun.
I think she's ending her Japan tour early just to
It's
watch
like a day
Super
earlier,
Bowl.
right?
Yeah, she's ending it a day early. So
The flight.
it also
You said the
helps-
who
it also
flight
helps
was
that-
everything. That was,
It-
that was
it,
kinda,
I mean, it also
I was
helps-
overdoing it a little bit.
I mean, it also helps that it's in Las Vegas, so she doesn't have to go across
I mean,
Yeah.
basically the entire world in a day.
I've never really seen more. I mean, they literally created a thing tracking her entire process, making it from Japan to the
What do you
Super
fly
Bowl.
to, like,
What is this,
California,
Shohei
then
Ohtani?
Las
Is
Vegas?
this Shohei
This is
Ohtani?
actually,
Like that one day.
That one day when they just leaked
Yeah.
his plane or something.
Toronto.
And it wasn't even.
It was a
Toronto.
bait. Like, oh my
It
god.
wasn't even his
Toronto.
plane. That play.
I
That
hated
was
that.
funny. That was
Shohei
funny.
Ohtani's headed to Toronto.
Shojay.
Matt, you got any thoughts on the Super Bowl?
I mean, you have possibly one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Some people would.
No, probably some people would probably already say.
Yeah. Some
he's
people. I mean, it
two
really
or
depends
three.
where you put him. Some people put him 3, maybe in the top 5,
For
definitely.
me, I probably
Already is
But,
great.
like-
No.
Nah, yeah.
He's definitely in the top
And then
five
This is
already.
fifth.
you have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time versus Mr. Irrelevant.
Who's
He's
Yeah,
a horror.
he's
He's,
having
he's below
historic
average at best.
season.
Below
But
average is
I mean, that is a little overdue.
I want to see some Sam Darnold action in the Super Bowl.
see some Brandon Allen action.
Oh
The third
my.
string quarterback. Bokina, back to you. You got anything else?
Not much. I mean, it's really going to be
Or just
focused on
like-
Taylor Swift. Well,
What are you
Matt?
most excited to see?
excited to
out of
see.
that?
I think it'll be a very close game. I think it'll actually be decided by field goal. So I think it's the battle of that's
Well, I mean, a lot of
experienced
Super
teams,
Bowls
Battle of the most,
like that.
battle of the most
know-
hated teams.
the most hated teams. It's really a Super Bowl that not many people will be
Excited
wanting.
to have.
Yeah, excited to happen. I think
Should've
people are
been
just
the
rooting for a
Packers.
good game.
Parm.
I mean, last time the Chiefs and Chiefs and 49ers faced off a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't want to say it, but like, I think we all know what happened a few weeks after that.
Yeah. All right.
So
all right.
let's
Let's
hope
go.
let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Steer away from that. Matt.
I mean, like, it should have been the Packers. First of all,
Yeah,
that's my
okay.
first
Should
one.
not have
I don't know
Should have been the
about that.
It
Packers.
should not have
The
been the
Li-
Packers.
It should have been. We went on
I
an
think
insanity run. We would have almost
It wa-
definitely beat the Lions.
it
So
was
the
not-
Lions.
I
I don't
know,
think you would have beaten the Lions.
that's-
I don't-
that's,
I
you know,
don't think
that-
The
you
Lions
would
are.
have
That's,
beaten
that's,
the
that's
Lions.
a bunch of
would've
ifs. That's a
Lions
bunch of
The
are
ifs.
Lions blew it. Yeah.
That's a bunch of
Lions
ifs.
overrated.
I mean, you
Either way,
the Lions
know,
are
like-
overrated.
Very.
They're not. They're
Very.
not at all.
Very.
I don't know if
extreme-
they're overrated.
they're
I
not
think they're
overrated.
rightly. I think they're
Yeah, they're
rightly.
properly
right.
I
Yeah,
think
they're
they're
properly
extremely
rated. They're
overrated. I
properly
think
Definitely
people
overrated.
people glaze the Lions a little too
They
much.
deserve-
I don't
mean,
think they're underrated
They
or
have a ton
overrated.
of young talent. They're like the Packers,
Okay.
but better.
No.
Literally. And
Incorrect.
they're led by a better
Incorrect.
quarterback.
You're telling me Jared Goff is better than Jordan Love?
Mike King.
Ben Johnson.
All right,
is-
buddy.
Ben Johnson and Sean
Our
McVay.
secondaries are kind of
Ben Johnson created
Hey,
Jared Goff.
You got Boston College head coach.
Boston
so
College legend.
Ben Johnson created Jared Goff.
got Zay Flowers, former head coach that taught him how to not taunt.
No. All
I
right.
mean, but
So
like,
you got continuing.
I don't have anything like really much. Like it's all
It's
right.
not really. It's not really what
It's not
anyone
an- it's not
wanted. It's not really
exciting.
what anyone wanted.
It's not exciting, but
honest.
it's still the Super Bowl.
It's not. I mean, it's what I wanted. I don't like the Lions. I don't
It's
like
two
the
good
Ravens.
teams though. So I mean, people are just
Yeah,
gonna be-
but
it's
I
gonna
mean,
be a good
I
game.
think-
nobody. Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah,
think
God.
the only less wanted Super Bowl would be the Chiefs and the Eagles again. I think
Hey,
that.
no, you
Oh,
know
no,
what?
that
I
would
actually,
suck.
think
you know what would be
that
kind of
would
cool?
like
You know what would be kind of cool? Lions Chiefs, because that was the first game of the season, and that was the last.
Hold on. So you're
That
so
That
you're
would have
tell-
been pretty.
so
Yeah,
you're
that
t-
would-
so you're telling me the
over.
Lions season started off the Chiefs dropping, but then their season ended on them
Yeah,
dropping.
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, All right.
I mean, to be fair though, the Chiefs did drop a lot of passes
Oh,
on that
yeah.
game.
Ugh.
Yeah, but that was entirely luck for the Lions. The Chiefs had so
Was
many
it really if
opportunities to win the
Kadarius
game.
Toney was starting?
No,
Was
but
it
that's
really?
that's really on the Chiefs.
Don't
That's
disrespect
less on
They
the
Kadarius
start
Lions.
winning
Toney.
when he's out. It's like
Yeah,
Huge loss for the Ravens.
especially when he doesn't travel.
Exactly.
Especially when he doesn't travel with the team.
Just an off day. It was an off day for Kadarius. It was
I
an
mean-
off season.
oh,
Sky, don't
actually-
forget about Sky. Don't forget
Oh,
about
Sky's
Sky.
out.
Yeah. No, for the Lions game.
I mean,
when they
another
played.
thing we can talk about, I guess, is the Kadarius Toney situation that's going on right now. I mean,
It's
you-
actually kind of funny.
it really
funny.
is, but
Yeah.
because it's not because you're injured, it's just because you flat out suck.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, he's just trying to make himself the center of attention when it doesn't. It really has no meaning to it.
He's just atrocious.
He's
Yeah.
trying to make himself
Yeah.
look like the center of
Yeah.
attention when he looks like a rat.
No.
No.
So Parm, you got
Nah.
any other thoughts on surrounding topics?
I mean, as much as I hate it, this is the Super Bowl that I wanted, because I don't like the Ravens. I don't like the Lions either. I hate the Chiefs, but I don't like the 49ers, but I hate the 49ers the least out of those four teams. So I'm just going to choose the 49ers.
Bokina.
I mean, not much. It's just not gonna be a Super Bowl that I'm gonna want to
Actually,
glue my eyes to the TV. I
Yeah.
guess.
in all honesty, I think the only thing that I'm going to want to watch is the halftime show because I think that's the only thing that's
Oh,
going to be
sure.
good. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing that's going to be good in that thing.
When was
Matt,
the last time Usher was relevant?
No
the
clue.
weekend.
That man was lost. That man was lost.
I think it was just more worth it for the memes coming out of it than the actual experience itself.
I'm gonna be like completely checked out of that entire Super Bowl. I'm just gonna be completely checked out. I'm not paying attention at all.
Yeah.
Just eating food. Like,
I think it's just.
All
More
right. I
All
don't want to hear it.
right. All right. So, any final thoughts from anyone, or are we good?
Kadarius Toney sucks.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right.
Travis Kelsey possible masterclass.
Yeah.
Tra- Taylor's there. Script says it.
Travis Kelsey.
Script does not say anything because every time Taylor's been there, Travis Kelsey.
He's kind of been bad.
There's been one game.
Bills.
There's been one game where Taylor Swift has been there and he's actually performed well.
Well, I mean,
The Ravens.
No,
Trust.
but he was there.
He performed very well
She was
against
there.
the
Was she
Ravens.
there for the Bills?
She was.
Well, he performed well that game too. I'm
But
gonna give him
but the
credit for
center
that.
of attention in that game was Jason Kelsey and not her. Because Jason Kelsey was jumping out of his suite shirtless. Also drinking with Bills fans, jumping onto flaming tables in the snow.
The only
he's
moment
that guy.
The only moment I think was better from the box was David Tepper fighting a Jaguars fan in the middle of the game. That was hilarious.
Jason Kelsey is he has such a Bills mentality. It's not even funny. I'm surprised he's not a Bill in all honesty.
Yeah. All right, so we good here? No. All right, so that will do it for our Super Bowl storylines. We'll be back shortly with another NFL segment. NBA segment. I thought we
And welcome back, everybody, to In the Vault. I'm Mr. Aranio, joined by Joseph Atala, Ryan Conlon, and Ryan Parmenter right now. We got a whole crew here. We have varsity girls basketball coming up at 4 p.m. The Vikings are taking on the Crusaders of Arthur L. Johnson High School, so we're varsity only today with basketball. Right now, we're going to continue talking NFL. Guys, we're talking about the Super Bowl that's coming up on Sunday, February 11th. And now we're going to talk about the New York Jets. So we haven't talked about the Jets in a while since the regular season ended a few weeks ago. And we weren't originally going to talk about the Jets today. We were going to do something else for our second NFL segment. But The Athletic came out with this fascinating article taking us behind the scenes with the 2023 New York Jets. It's a long article. If you haven't read it yet, it is so worth reading. When I saw it yesterday, I read the whole thing, and I said, we got to talk about that on In the Vault tomorrow. So I'm going to open up the floor as we go. I'm just going to continue to skim through the article because there's so much here. Might read some quotes from it. So, Ryan Conlon, why don't you share your opening thoughts on the Athletic article on the Jets?
I mean, I got two big things to start out. I mean, one thing that was really surprising to me was Robert Saleh's inability to kind of control himself in front of his team. I mean, telling them to show him their phones because he's worried that they're spreading false information to the media. I mean, that's just a type of insecurity that's really, really not good for a head coach in the NFL. And also, Nathaniel Hackett to have this lack of preparedness. I mean, and apparently he was watching literally no film until the day before the game. I mean, all this stuff was really evident in the play, but I never expected it to be that bad.
I mean, another thing that there is to talk about is the, again, with Nathaniel Hackett, with, Rodgers and him basically being best buddies and making an offense that perfectly suited quarterbacks, as it said, but
and then not adjusting it to Zach Wilson.
Not adjusting it to Zach Wilson at all, who is not a pocket passer, and we all know this. And, Rodgers basically created the playbook all by himself, and Hackett was basically just calling the plays. And then also the ineptitude of the front office just generally. They thought that Rodgers was gonna fix all the problems with the Jets, fix all the glaring holes, which obviously for a 39-year-old quarterback who is not gonna happen, and a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of a torn Achilles, it's just not gonna happen.
And I mean, also Robert Saleh talking about in the media, I have faith in Zach Wilson, and then going behind his back and saying, he's the reason why we're losing. I mean, I don't really think that's the way you should behave. And also, I mean, it's either Hackett's inability or he's just lazy and doesn't want to change the play. I mean, he's not Zach Wilson's clearly not a 4-time MVP and one of the best quarterbacks ever. So, I mean, you got to adjust the playbook. It happened in week 1. It's not like he didn't have any time to adjust.
They didn't have any backup plan.
Yeah.
And then they just used that excuse that, Rodgers got hurt, so our season's over.
Week 1.
You can't operate that way. You have to have a backup plan, and they didn't have one.
I mean, even the article brought that up, that was a team built full of excuses.
Yeah, and from the article, it paints it as if Saleh's the one that had the most excuses. Again, we're not there. We don't know. It's an article. I mean, how true everything is. It seems well-researched, and there's sources there. I mean, they're anonymous sources, so it's always tricky with that. But, I mean, you look at the play in the field. You look at the way the season unfolded. So I look at the way they played on the field and how the season unfolded as evidence of what was in this article. Joseph, so I want to ask you this. Aaron Rodgers, you're a huge Green Bay Packers fan, as our audience knows. So 4-time MVP, one of the elite quarterbacks of all time. I don't know if he's in the top class of quarterbacks ever. I don't think he is. But, again, he's an elite quarterback. He's a future first-ballot Hall of Famer for sure. But has he earned the right to have this much power within an organization? And, could you talk about that and then also talk about – refresh the audience on why he was traded, why he wasn't wanted anymore in Green Bay. And then the Jets all of a sudden open up their arms to him to be someone who's having his major voice in the organization. Almost seems like he's running it. What is this all about? What's your assessment as a longtime Packers fan and I'm assuming Aaron Rodgers fan?
I love Rodgers. He did a lot of great things for the organization, but the reason why we took him out was because of money issues. His contract was too big, and we needed to be able to build for the future after he left.
Was it $151 million, right?
Yeah, it was some crazy
but
number.
Doesn't that show something about him that he won't take a pay cut to make the team better? Tom Brady did that consistently throughout his career. I mean, Tom Brady's made a ton of money, and he's going to make even more money, which we got to talk about him as an announcer. That's a whole other story.
$375 million.
But the fact is, he took less money. He was always as a quarterback, like he was never even close to being the highest paid quarterback.
Not
So
yet.
Aaron Rodgers, look, I'm not saying you have an obligation to do that, but does that show something about Rodgers? Like it's all about him maximizing his salary, and he's not willing to give anything up to make the team better.
I mean, there was also another issue with, obviously I'm not there, I'm not in the organization, but like there was people coming out saying that Rodgers was kind of calling the shots. He was kind of overriding what LaFleur was saying. So that you can see it's kind of a little warning
if that was
signs
going on in Green Bay, which the Jets had to know about because it was out there, it was in the press. This is nothing new. We're refreshing it now, right? So you're refreshing the audience on this. But this was known. So then why would the Jets bring him in and allow him to do what he was doing in Green Bay, which they didn't like in Green Bay and is probably a big part of the reason why he's not there anymore. But now the Jets welcome him in open arms. So, no, you could have all this power and all this say in our organization.
I mean, you saw it, like, also in the article, there was an anonymous AFC GM who said, like, it's normal for a quarterback of his stature to have, like, more power in the organization, but they saw it was, like, to an extreme with Rodgers, and I think that really shows, especially when an outside source.
Well, the
says
article
that.
said that Joe Douglas is the assistant GM.
I saw that. Yeah.
Again, like, it's a bunch of anonymous sources. So anytime it's anonymous sources, you got to be careful, but
I mean, it was a lot, and it was also supposedly within the organization, so, I mean, it could be pretty reliable.
And another thing about Rodgers, basically messing up the Jets. I mean, the Jets were so desperate for a savior. They thought that Rodgers would be, as I said earlier, the solution to all their problems. But as more and more stuff has come out, he hasn't really been the solution they thought he was. If anything, he's been more of a problem.
Especially when he was out. I mean, he's not doing anything. And one thing that really caught my eye, too, was how, like they said, Zach Wilson would depend on Aaron Rodgers during training camp, and he thought he would be a source of teaching for him. But when Aaron Rodgers went down, supposedly their relationship kind of distanced itself from where it was prior, and then Rodgers was barely reaching out to Wilson. So I mean,
and again, if that part is true, then Rodgers is brought in not only to be the quarterback and play football and be the on-field savior. He's brought in as a guy you're giving a lot of power and being not only a leader for the team, but a leader for the organization. So if you're going to assume that role, let's say this, it's one thing if you're just the star quarterback. You're an on-field leader, you're a captain. Okay, you could say that, well, he doesn't necessarily have to take Wilson under his wing. I think it's the right thing to do as a veteran quarterback to help the younger quarterback. But now that you're a leader in the organization, you have major say. You're there with the GM, the head coach, the owner. To me, then you have an obligation to take the younger backup quarterback under your wing. So if that part is true, then that's a total neglect of this role that he's assumed with the New York Jets.
And another thing that was surprising was, I mean, it wasn't really surprising, but also it caught my eye, like Woody Johnson apparently, like, getting caught up in the social media aspect of football, and, like, I mean, he was, like, questioning Saleh, and then that's where Saleh came to blame Wilson privately about the issues with the offense. But I mean, you can't really have your owner getting caught up in, like, what people are saying online.
So
that's a little bit.
The owner was looking online and social media what
Comments,
the fans and media were saying about the team,
and then confronting Saleh about it behind the scenes.
That just shows insecurity.
I guess it's nice you're taking public opinion, but no, you
And then
can't.
Saleh would just
You can't operate that way when you're the owner of a
Just so
National
much
Football League
dysfunction.
team.
Especially with someone with as big as a market as the Jets do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't mind getting fan feedback. Like, okay, if the fans involved, I mean, the fans,
I mean, yeah, but
buy the tickets and buy the merchandise, and you don't have the NFL, you don't have the New York Jets, you have the fans, but you're not going to the fans for their opinion on
offense,
on the players and the quarterback and the play call.
Yeah.
Like you don't do that. That part's not supposed to be
that just screams.
democratic and part of taking public opinion.
that just screams insecurity to me from Woody Johnson's part.
But I mean, it also kind of screams insecurity, not just from Johnson, but it also screams insecurity from Saleh,
Especially
because he's blaming someone. He's blaming someone
who in the public spotlight he's just defending. Like
he's blaming the main piece of your offense, when in all reality you should be blaming yourself, and you should be blaming the coaching, especially Hackett, as he refused to as someone said it earlier, he refused to look at film until the day prior and refused to change his system, even though he had literally the entire season to do it once Rodgers got injured.
I mean, I blame a lot of it on Saleh, but I mean, also, I blame a lot of it on Hackett. But I mean, this part has to go on Saleh because I mean, he's more of a defensive coach. Obviously, he was with San Francisco, and he comes over. He's there, but like he's not really a big part of the offense, and he just delegates that to Hackett. But I mean, once you see things going the way they are, I think he needs to like take more of a role there and try to like right the ship. Like I think he just kind of left it off to Hackett, and Hackett started to get frankly like a little bit lazy, and he didn't adjust his game plan once Rodgers went down.
Saleh needed to hold Hackett more accountable.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big problem with the Jets coaching staff is the fact that they don't have nearly as much accountability as they should have, especially as a professional.
Well,
coaching
did he
staff.
not hold Hackett more accountable because that's Rodgers' guy, and it's like
Yeah, I mean that's probably especially
it all goes to Rodgers. It's how they empowered him to be a leader in the organization, and I don't think that ever could work. And I know they do it in the NBA. Like I don't think they don't really do it in
the NBA is more of like a star like driven
The
league.
NBA is more the NBA is more of a solo sport than it is than
football is
a
like
major
a sport where you
Yeah.
like coaching is the most coaching in football is obviously the most important
and
piece of most important that coaching could ever be in any sport because it's really frankly like something where you need to be bonded together and every part needs to be working to win.
NBA is the most solo driven sport, you know, then especially in the four major North American sports because baseball, hockey, and football they all need to be they need to work as a team and basketball does not. And Rodgers is kind of operating how basketball is supposed to operate. He's operating in like he's the guy. I should be in control.
Well,
of
I don't
everything.
think basketball should operate that way either. I brought it up because I don't like how they empower the players in the NBA the way they do. I think it goes too far. That's another conversation. But the NFL, to me, there's no argument, very little argument to be made with that sort of structure. In the NBA, I get the argument. I disagree with it, but I get the argument. In the NFL,
In the NBA,
even
you got
if
5 guys.
even
on the
if
court.
it's Tom Brady, even if it's the best ever, I don't think you could empower a quarterback or any player in the organization the way the Jets have empowered Aaron Rodgers. Like, Tom Brady didn't have that power in New England. I mean, he had say, but you had Bill Belichick. There was no way.
Kraft was obviously a big force, and I think obviously one thing about this that I was really surprised about was like that anonymous opinion from an AFC GM because obviously it's very very obvious to other teams in the NFL that this is just not the normal way it's supposed to go with a star, and I think that's really speaks to how the Jets kind of let it get out of control a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it works. I don't think that sort of structure is ever going to work, particularly in the long term. You can say, okay, this is a short term thing because Rodgers is going to be that long, but it just there may be elements you say, oh, this part works, but overall, you gotta have a head coach that's in charge, right?
No question about
the head
it.
coach leads the team. Helps develop the culture like that. The head coach has to be the guy, right? And if the GM has their role in the front office, Aaron Rodgers is meddling in the role of the head coach, the GM, the owner. It's not like he's just meddling in one position like it's him with Saleh. He's kind of acted as the head coach. He's acted as head coach. He's acting as GM. He's acting as offensive coordinator. He's acting like he's part of the ownership group. I mean, it's out of control how much they've empowered him, but it's not Rodgers' fault. I mean, if somebody's going to offer you that power, the vast majority of people are going to take it. So it starts at the top with Woody Johnson, and then it goes to Douglas, the front office, to Saleh, the coaching staff. Like they've allowed this situation to happen, and I think this sets them up for pure chaos next year. Like
I'm excited to see how it plays out.
I
really am.
I'm sure you are as a Dolphins fan, but even if you're a Jets fan, whatever team you're a fan of, it's going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Like if you just take your rooting interest out of it and just watch this thing unfold, like the Jets again next year are going to be a huge story. They'll be one of the biggest, if not the biggest story in the NFL. Again, like coming into this season, they were the biggest story in the NFL.
Aaron Rodgers still managed to maintain probably the biggest story in the NFL the entire season while being out because of all his appearances on Pat McAfee show and everything he did off the field. Which shows how it's going to be like when he's actually on the field.
And another thing that I saw, talking about Rodgers being the Pat McAfee show, Saleh complained that why aren't the Giants getting this much attention?
Oh yeah, he did. One,
the Giants are significantly worse than the Jets are. 2, it doesn't help when you're
Also,
you're
whoa,
the
wait a
savior-
minute though. The Giants are significantly worse than the Jets.
Yes.
Yes.
Their,
Oh, I don't know about that.
No,
their
no, it's
defense
not
is
even.
significantly
have-
worse. Their special teams is significantly
The
worse.
Jets have
So
a
I've watched
bounty
both-
more talent.
I've watched both Giants and Jets games this
But
year.
you're just talking about talent.
The Jets'
I'm
talent
not
is not
talking
even
about-
close.
I'm
to
not talking
as
about
bad.
talent alone. I'm also talking about schemes and how well their players have performed. The Jets' offense
I
is
mean-
one of the worst in the league, and it's fractionally worse than the Giants. But their defense and special teams is there's defense, special teams, and scheme is so much better than the Giants, and it's not even.
Who would
close.
who would you rather who would you rather have?
I'd much rather have.
Who
the
would you rather have
Giants.
leading your organization? Dable
I mean, not even Dable or Salah.
or Salah? And then
not
I'd
even
rather have
question.
Dable.
what's the Giants
Easily.
GM's name?
Joe Shane.
Joe Shane. Yeah.
Joe
So would you rather have him or Douglas?
Shane.
Shane. Well, I mean, you're not really getting a fair look at Douglas because Rodgers is just taking.
Oh, would you rather have the Giants
Yeah.
ownership?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying in terms of talent. Okay, fine. The Jets have more talent, especially defensive side of the
on
ball,
defense.
special teams.
even on offense.
But
too.
the organizations, I think you can take it as a whole. Like the Giants, I know the Giants in the last
10 years.
12 years since they won their last Super Bowl. Last 12 years, they've really struggled. They've only made the playoffs twice. So the Giants for the last 12 years have pretty much been bad. But the Jets
Have been even
have been worse. As bad as the Giants have been, the
have
Jets
just
have been worse. The Jets have the longest streak in the four major sports of not making the playoffs. So,
The Jets
you know,
have just been a
he's
symbol of
complaining about the
dysfunction.
Giants not taking more criticism. But the Giants have a winning pedigree. Like, again, the last 12 years haven't been good for the Giants.
But they still
But the
won 2
Giants have a
Super Bowls.
winning pedigree. They've won 4 Super Bowls. They have much better ownership with the Maras and the Tisches. Like there's a tradition there. Again, I'll use the word pedigree again. The Jets have nothing. So what do you expect? The Jets are gonna get the Jets are gonna get ripped in the media because they deserve it. It's a losing
It's just a symbol
horrible
of
franchise.
just
it is the
it's a
Giants. The
dysfunction.
Giants, despite their recent
Giants are just.
their recent problems and the recent seasons they've had. Again, the last 12, the last dozen, the Giants are a good organization. So if they're getting more benefit of the doubt, it makes sense. And what's he talking about? The Giants don't get ripped in the media?
They get ripped
yeah.
in the media.
But people were focused more on the Jets this year because of the expectations for the Jets. So you had all these high expectations, and you wanted to be the show. You were Hard Knocks. You were doing all, you had some guys doing all this talking. We're the Jets. It's not same old Jets. All this stuff. And okay, Rodgers gets hurt, but then you didn't have a backup plan. The season was another disaster, and then it's just excuses. So you don't think you're going to get ripped in the media and by fans
and then it
in
also,
that situation?
and then you take it.
It just
when
has no-
Johnson takes it to the way he runs his organization, which is even worse.
and then you also have Rodgers appearing on the McAfee show, which feels like
Every
by daily.
week.
It happened
Yeah.
basically every
Twice
other
a
day.
week.
I mean, you didn't. The
He
media
was
did-
basically he was basically a permanent part of the show at the whole season.
the media didn't bring this upon you. You did. You brought it upon yourself to have Rodgers do everything, just be inept in general, and not having a backup plan. This
It really
could've
goes
all-
back to not having a backup plan because
this
that would
could have all been prevented if there's a backup plan. And you're complaining about the Giants not getting enough attention. If you had a backup plan, the Giants would be getting ripped much more than the Jets would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Jets will still take heat, but, yeah, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad as it was. I mean, they could just,
put it on, our quarterback went down, and we performed better than expectations. But the way it went down was like they just weren't even remotely
well,
prepared.
you rolled the dice with a
Yeah.
39, now 40-year-old quarterback. It didn't work. No backup plan. You're full of excuses. You have all this chaos internally, which has been
I
exposed
mean, when you're that
externally.
inept and it gets exposed, I mean, I don't think you can I don't think you can expect to not receive criticism in the media. It's just ridiculous to me.
Joseph.
I mean, I think you can really just sum up the entire Jets organization in one word: inept.
Dysfunction.
And just
Dysfunction.
dysfunctional,
Yeah.
inept. There's so many words that you can say, but I think inept is probably the
Yeah,
best word to
probably.
say. Like they're slow moving. They didn't adjust. You sign a 39-year-old quarterback. You have to be able to have a backup plan for that. He's 39.
Regardless of
What do you
whether-
mean?
whether
You
he's won
expect
4
that man
MVPs.
to be alive for the whole season? Like he's not. It's very high chance. The older you get, the more likely you're gonna get injured, especially with that O-line. You come into the
I think-
season.
I mean, I think it really people were so shocked about it when it happened 4 plays into the season. But I mean, I think the Jets
Honestly,
obviously
wasn't shocked.
like-
That offensive line.
like Joseph. I mean, just Jets fans in general. I mean, like Joseph said, they're just inept. Like they weren't even remotely prepared, and it really burned them.
I mean, and also coming into the season, I know I'm pretty sure Jacob and
And
other people I know had the Jets to go straight to the Super Bowl.
So did I.
They were everyone said they're Super Bowl ready teams. They were the best team in the AFC.
I mean, with a
Look at 'em now.
third-ranked defense and you have a Rodgers-led offense with a dependable to elite running back and a pretty good receiving core. I mean,
you have one of the top 10 receivers in football.
Yeah.
I had him
And
at
a
8 and 9.
and possibly a top 5 running
I
back in the
overestimated
league.
too by a game.
I mean, I think it
I
really
just figured something was going to go wrong.
A lot
it
of-
wasn't even necessarily
yeah.
the injury. It just was something is going to go
just
wrong
the
with
Jets,
this.
just
The
the
Jet
Jets
way.
way. The Jet way.
And then the offensive line, like even if Rodgers played the whole year,
No, yeah.
they weren't going to the
Think
Super
about-
Bowl.
think
They
about-
weren't even coming close to the Super Bowl. Like they probably would have made the playoffs. But I don't think that's guaranteed. It took 10 wins to get into the AFC playoffs. The Steelers were 10 and 7, right? And who was the 6th seed?
Browns.
Browns, yeah.
And the Browns were
speaking of-
11 and
No, not the Browns.
The Browns were the
Dolphins.
five.
Dolphins.
I was
And the
gonna
Dolphins
say
were
that.
11 and 6. So it took
I mean-
it took 10 and 7. They were 3 wins short. So even if Rodgers played, how many more wins would they? People say he would have 4 or 5 more games. They would not have
That's
won
just-
4 or 5 more games behind behind
mean-
that offensive line, the lack of receivers. It wasn't happening. Like, come on, if they won 3 more games, they're 10 and 7. Well, then you have to win the tiebreaker over the Steelers.
I mean, one thing that
I don't know whether they would or not, but like they weren't even guaranteed to be a playoff team with Rodgers.
I mean-
Probably, but not
Yeah.
definitely.
like you look at some of the games the Jets played this year. I mean, you think Rodgers is going to go into that Thursday night game in Cleveland against that defense on the road? And I mean,
No,
there's
they
a-
would have lost
There's
that
a
game.
high possibility that he gets injured in that
He'd
game
be eaten alive.
behind that offensive line.
He'd
Not,
been
not that
eaten
we're gonna
alive.
not that we're gonna do this on the show, but you go through the schedule and say, okay, what games would they have won if Rodgers had played? I will not. I cannot say
I
that.
think they would have won that Falcons game where they played at home. They probably would have.
That game was atrocious.
Yeah, but like that was just entirely on Simeon. I mean, I don't see them winning maybe 2 more games. I could see like that. I could think of off the top of my head, maybe 2.
At a
more
Patriots
games.
game at home.
Yeah, that.
I don't know how you lose that.
That one and the Falcons one were 2 ones that really stuck out to me as like atrocious offensive performance.
Yeah. So there's
Don't forget about the Giants game.
They won the
touchdowns
first-
they scored.
Yeah, that one.
well
too.
they were given that game.
Yeah, they won. That.
They won the Bills game because the Bills
Arts.
couldn't hold on to the ball. Maybe they beat the Chiefs at home. Maybe.
Yeah, oh yeah, but
no,
Wilson played very
Wilson
well
played
that game.
fantastic
Yeah.
that game.
I mean, they won that Eagles game,
It,
which just exposed.
Well, so so like where are the wins? So again, like it's this whole narrative that if he had played, we're going to a conference title game,
No.
Super Bowl. Like no,
Super
at most they would have been a wild card team, the 6 or 7 seed.
You think they're beating
and
the
they're-
Ravens on the if they were in the Texans' position, they're going into Baltimore and beating that defense with Aaron Rodgers behind that
Well, they
offensive
wouldn't
line.
even have
Come
got
on.
to the divisional round.
Yeah.
If they were the 7th seed, they would have played the Bills. They would have been bounced to the first
I don't
round.
think they would even beat the Texans with Rodgers.
Who is the 3? Oh, the Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
They'll lose to the Chiefs at Kansas City.
With that
so
weather?
they're out in the wild card round. So all they accomplished, which for the Jets you could say was a big thing, finally made the playoffs. But you're on the wild card round when you had Super Bowl expectations.
It's just-
So the whole thing was a
The
fraud.
one thing
it was a fraud coming
Yeah.
into the season. How they're pumping this team up as a Super Bowl contender.
and then
And honestly, I got a lot wrong with the season. I got some things right.
Jaguars.
The Giants.
Oh,
But,
yeah,
but
what-
the
what'd you
Jets,
say
it
with
was
the
like
Giants?
this thing's just not going to work
What'd
out.
you say?
And I'm going to say it confidently now. It ain't working out next year
No.
either.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see how it plays out, but I don't think it's going to.
Oh, it's going to be fascinating. It's great to talk about.
The one thing I don't think we brought up yet is what doesn't make sense is that we talked about not having a backup plan and all that stuff like that. But Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson, sorry, you have Zach Wilson who drafted very high in the draft. Obviously hasn't panned out his first 3 years in the league, and I mean there's Salah's trash talking behind the scenes, but someone in that organization probably has so much faith in him and the unwillingness to let go that they couldn't come with a backup plan. And I think that's what really burned them because even though it doesn't make sense to me because everyone was talking badly about him behind the scenes.
But
But
then-
I think it has to go back to Woody Johnson or Joe Douglas with their some power they have. They don't want to get rid of Zach
But then
Wilson.
another issue is, because let's be honest, people say things behind the scenes, right? I mean, everybody does it, right? All coaches do it, players do it. So what's going on in an organization that this stuff's leaking out? Now, who is
Yeah.
Saleh talking to? You know, so
And
who
they're
is he being
overhearing it.
irresponsible, saying it to people he shouldn't? But like if he's saying that internally to people that he should be able to trust,
and then they're
and that's
it out.
leaking out. Like if he's saying it in front of players, you shouldn't say it in front of players. But he's saying it with his coaching staff, and then he's got someone in the coaching staff who's leaking that to the media. Well, then you got a problem. You got someone there who shouldn't be there. So they got a problem with leaks. It's like a White House administration. If you got leaks coming out of the White House, then you got people in your administration that shouldn't be in the administration. So you got to properly vet who you got. So who does that go to? That goes to
doesn't make-
Saleh.
yeah.
That's on Saleh for having people in the building people in the organization that should not be there. He can't trust. So no matter how you look at it, Robert Saleh, who wants to avoid accountability, cannot escape accountability. Now, Joe Douglas is not doing that from what we know. We haven't heard anything about that. We haven't heard about what
Personally, I don't think Joe Douglas is a bad GM. I mean, I just don't think he's been given the proper I mean, since
I'm not
Rodgers,
saying he's a bad GM either.
everyone was hyped going into the season. I know he made the Rodgers move, but going into the season, people were like pointing him out as like the future of the Jets, and now that's seriously in jeopardy, despite what happened, especially because of what happened last year. Despite his prior draft things he's done in the draft.
I mean, the GM ultimately has to be accountable. The team is 7-10. He's been the GM for a few years. They've been bad for those few years. Like he's been given a good amount of time. You know, so I mean, next year's make or break it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't have a playoff season next year,
it's going to be a complete overhaul.
It should be. I mean, but you never know with Woody Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, because what if Rodgers comes back for another season and it's like, oh, we got to keep Saleh and Hackett
I could honestly
and
see
Joe
him doing
Douglas
that.
because of Aaron Rodgers. Like you're going to go that you're going to do that in the 2025 season as well.
It's just I mean, it's just going to go on until Aaron doesn't want it to anymore. It's Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. That's what it is.
It's just no surprise. And again, I'm a Jets fan. Been a Jets fan for over 30 years.
I'm sorry for your loss.
But I mean, it is what it is. There's more important things in life. You know, I like the team. I'm a Jets fan, but I don't see how anybody could be optimistic. I know as a fan, you want reasons for optimism, and I'll go into the season next year. It's like, all right, new season, you're excited for it. Hope they do well.
way
Hope they
football
win.
is.
But I'm not going in there like
Making conference.
I'm not going in there
championship.
thinking or predicting that they're going far. Like I don't see how you could have optimism besides the natural optimism of a fan. I don't see how you could make the case.
There's nothing that sticks out.
Besides, okay, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback next year, and we have a much better quarterback, much better than we had this past year and the year before
Got
that.
the third-ranked defense in the league. I mean, those are all things they had going into last year. Look how that turned out. Look how the optimism turned out there.
Yeah,
So I mean,
you
I
know
think
what,
you got to be
But the defense,
wary
I don't
about
think
it.
the defense is immune. I know it's a very good
Yeah.
defense, but the way they showed up in Cleveland,
I think
mean,
they just
were-
gave up.
they-
though.
no,
But,
the
but, that, but that's a
defense just
character.
gave
But
up.
that's a
Yeah.
character thing.
Yeah.
You got guys who are giving
But
up.
I mean, the coaching
who's
might
to
be-
say those guys won't give up again? So the players have accountability too.
It did happen the year before that as well with Wilson and then giving up. I think it's just something to do with.
Well,
with
it's
him,
it's a
really.
culture thing, and Saleh has not created the culture that they need. It's same old Jets because the Jets have pretty much always had this dysfunction. I mean, really, with the Jets, if you go back, they brought Bill Parcells in. He changed the culture. He came in. They were 1-15 the year before. They go 9-7 in 1997. They go 12-4 in '98. Go to the AFC title game. They're up 10-0 in the third quarter against Denver in Denver. They lose the game. Then '99, Vinny Testaverde gets hurt the first game. But Bill Parcells, like I always go back to him. They say Belichick's the greatest coach ever. Like Bill Parcells, first of all, Belichick came from Parcells. Parcells came in and took the Jets from being a laughing stock to a respectable organization. And I think Parcells' coattails lasted for several years, because then the Jets went on. They had Herm Edwards make the playoffs a few times. Then later was Rex Ryan, the AFC title games they went to. Like I think what Parcells did
Cultures,
lasted into the future for, I don't know, maybe like a decade or so, where culture was changed.
Now
but then it
it's-
reverted, and now it's pretty much as bad as it's as bad as ever. Like it really
Definitely.
it's back to who the Jets are, and how are you going to solve this if you have the same people in the positions of authority?
I mean, there's nothing pointing towards that they will.
That was an interesting article, and
Very much.
it's a long article. It took me, I don't know, I was probably reading it for. I was playing the music now, so that's why I stopped. Gets distracting. But anyway, I probably spent 45 minutes on that thing, like really
Very.
dissecting the whole thing yesterday.
I mean, everyone knew that things were up in the organization due to their performance on the field, but just to hear it from like anonymous sources itself just really was interesting to me.
It was not shocking. Like as I read it,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this makes sense. But again, if you haven't read it, fascinating article, and it makes for great sports talk radio, which we had a really nice discussion, really good discussion here about it on In the Vault. So we're going to take a break. It's 3:19, so we're going to take a short break. We're going to bring on our NBA crew. We have Jack and Colton coming on to talk some NBA. Conlon, you're an NBA guy.
Yeah.
You want to stay on for some
Sure,
NBA?
sure, I'll stay on.
All right, Ryan's going to stay on for the NBA. Are you an NBA guy? I always forget. You are not an NBA guy. I know you're not.
I'm a casual guy, so I don't really follow it that often.
All right, so we got our NBA crew. Don't go away here on In the Vault.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to In the Vault. I've got Conlon and I got Colton with me. We're going to talk some NBA here about the trades that happened few months ago. It depends on the trade that happened. We're going to first talk about the struggling Heat and how Terry Rozier joined the team. Now, granted, he hasn't had a practice yet. So, but what have you seen? He struggled, but what have you seen, like the bigger picture of why he struggled?
I mean, I think Terry Rozier is going to start off tough. I mean, he already has, but I think practices are also really crucial because practices are where you get to know the team, where you get to practice with them, and that's how you run your plays is in practice. Yeah. So it's a crucial part of I think him and just overall that whole Heat organization. So I think it's really crucial that Terry Rozier starts practicing with them and starts getting more experience.
I agree with him there because, I mean, especially in basketball, when you get traded, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you got to get acclimated with, and especially in Rozier's case because, I mean, he's a player where, a lot of things are going to run through him on offense. So, I mean, he's going to have to get, adjusted and acclimated. So practices will be very important for him, too.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to be a point guard and to slide in there. We'll talk about OG soon, but he's a small forward, 3-and-D small forward. So we can slide right in. All he needs to do is catch and shoot and guard the best player and learn from Tom Thibodeau. He's the best person to learn from. But not saying Eric Spoelstra's bad or Eric Spoelstra's amazing. But it's the thing that, he's a point guard, and it's hard. He gets to his ISO bag, which he did in Charlotte, which he needs to. But he needs to understand that you're on a different team. I know he understands it, we need a win now because I'm on a Heat team, but he needs to understand now that you might have to give the ball to Tyler Hero. You might have to give the ball to Tam. And I think he learned because I watched the Kings game. He had 10 assists, 3 points, didn't shoot the ball well, and had 10 assists, which was learning curve for me without even practicing.
I mean, it's really different seeing because when he was in Charlotte, he had a more like the main ball handler kind of player. So, but now he's with a different team. So I mean, Jimmy Butler is kind of guy who's the main ball handler. He's with Tyler Hero, and then you also got Bam Adebayo down low. So I think that Terry Rozier, it's gonna be it's a little bit like a weird fit, I guess. But
it's an interesting move.
It's what they needed. It's not a good fit, but you understand what I mean. It's not a good fit, but they kind of need scoring.
I mean, yeah, he's a good player where he's the type of player where you can make the trade for him and even though he's not the fit, it's still like valuable to your team because he's gonna bring assists, like Jack said. I mean, he's developing new parts of his game, and even when he doesn't shoot the ball well, he could still be a value to the team.
Now, the reason why the Heat kind of like one of the reasons the Heat bring him to Miami. I mean, yeah, obviously he bring him to Miami. Where else would they bring him? But the reason they did was because he got in the league in Boston, was I think his first stop. He got in the league because of his defense. And I know you guys looking at me like, what? He's a scorer. But his defense is what got him in the league. His defense is what got DeJounte Murray in the league. Players like that. That's why they got in the league. And that's what I think the Heat are trying to revamp, that defensive attitude, that defensive pressure. And, nothing better than sitting behind Eric Spoelstra talking to him.
Yep. I mean, you have like the best coach, like one of the best coaches in the league currently, and one of the greatest coaches of all time. So I think that definitely helps to have on your team.
Especially when you're transitioning to a new team, right, Colton said?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect match. I mean, we can go right here and talk about perfect matches between OG Anunoby and Tom Thibodeau. Well, that's a perfect match for me. How do you think that he has helped him transform his game? He's not, we know he's a great defender, but I feel like it's more like I see it more. Maybe because I'm watching every single game, but I feel like I'm feeling the impact.
I mean, it's clear to see. I think clearly OG's had like such a big impact for this Knicks team. They have like 2 losses in the month. So I think ever since they got him in the trade, I think he just provided so much. And it might be crazy to say, but I think he's definitely more valuable than who was it? RJ
and Quickly.
And
Yeah.
Quickly.
I think
and that pick.
I think. All right, Kai,
It's so weird. We went from the Heat, who are just having a terrible month, to the Knicks, who are having a great month.
So yeah, I agree with Colton. He definitely had a huge impact, but I think it's because he was like, that was the perfect move for the Knicks to make. Like, I mean, they needed that guard that can play perimeter D, the player that can play perimeter D, and I think he perfectly fit that. I mean, because they have the score. Like, they're losing RJ, but RJ's never going to be. He's a good player, but he's never going to live up to that 3rd pick status that he had. And Quickly, yeah, it's tough to lose that guy, offensive spark coming off the bench. But I think obviously it helped improve the Knicks, and look at where they're at right now. I mean, it definitely paid off.
I mean, and they prove shooting. Like, I feel like I know G hasn't played like the last few games with an elbow injury, but the last few games before he hasn't played. But now it feels like OG is giving more space to players like Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson because of his corner shooting, which is great. So what do you think about his corner shooting for that New York Knicks team to give him space? Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle.
The corner shooting is like really valuable. I think that like his style of play just really did fit the Knicks. I mean, they needed kind of like that perimeter defender who's also a solid shooter. So he provides the 3-pointers. Like he could definitely average like 15, 20 a night. I think is definitely reasonable for him. But then on top of it, he's also playing good defense and probably average a steal or 2.
So I'm gonna ask you this. So he's got improved. I think I've seen a play where they do like a kind of action. I'm not going to bore you away. They gave you an act with like the term of the action where they hand the ball off. He gets downhill and he dribbles. Like I feel like he hasn't really dribbled a lot in Toronto and created his own shot. But I guess when Julius is out, you're going to see more of that. Can he improve? I mean, he's only 26 years old. Can he improve that part of the game?
Yeah, I think especially like you said earlier, learning under Thibodeau, I think there's really not really a better coach except for maybe Spoelstra or
Pop.
I mean, there's not many.
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr. But you can barely count on one hand how many guys are better to learn under than Tom Thibodeau in the NBA right now. So I think he'll definitely improve in that aspect of his game because I mean his defense is already up to par, obviously, and I think that's getting downhill is something that he could bring to this team to help it make it better. In
bodies
all
just
aspects.
fly off of him. Whenever I'm watching him, when he gets downhill, bodies just fly right off him. He's so strong. I think that's one of the most underrated parts. He's just big and strong. I mean, it's simple. He's just big and strong. When you see him in person, he's big and strong. Like that when you can run a lot of plays or something like that.
I think.
You guys moving on. Do you guys think DeJounte Murray may get traded at I don't like him on the Hawks. I don't like.
He was not the move. They didn't need another guard.
Yeah, I like. I mean, he's not the type of. The Spurs was where I don't know. I didn't like that move at all.
I think he'd fit right now with the Spurs if they actually slipped
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think the Spurs need a point guard, but I'm gonna talk about this team. Well, it's kind of weird because Tyrese Halliburton played the first game with Pascal Siakam. Then he sat for a few games, then played again, like against the Celtics. He had limited minutes. So what he said in the post game was like, "I've got to adapt like 3 teams. One team of the Raptors, I've got to adapt to them. Then I've got to adapt to my to the T.J. McCollum led team in Toronto in the Indiana Pacers, and then I have to adapt to the Tyrese Halliburton led team. So how do you think he has dealt with that? Because of Tyrese Halliburton getting injured, it's kind of like a bad time for them interconnecting a new player in that team.
It's a bad time for Tyrese to get hurt. I think they're around like the 5, 6, 7 seed range, so they're really needing of wins because they got to make the playoffs. But that duo between Tyrese and Pascal is just, I think that's like really deadly. Like Tyrese Halliburton, he already provides so many assists, but I think adding Pascal to his team, I think, can really help with that assists. And then they both just really provide for their teams.
Yeah, I agree.
So, do you think that Pascal Siakam is not just a regular season move, but a playoff move? So I think he said in this post-game comment, I can also play when the game slows down. I can get you a tough bucket if you really want me to when a game slows down.
Yeah,
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's definitely a part of his game that could be beneficial because, I mean, you could do whatever you want in the regular season. It's you could just play fast paced, you get in transition, but it's different in the playoffs when like players are teams are gonna adjust. They're gonna change their game plan. They're gonna go back to. They're gonna change things up that you haven't seen maybe if you played them in the regular season. So I think he could definitely be valuable in that part of it.
If you count Halliburton, before the Siakam trade, there's no one really who could create off the dribble. Like Benedict Mathurin, he's young, but I don't really trust him in a playoff series creating off the dribble. Maybe I do if anything happens, maybe a closeout chat. But then you have Halliburton who kind of creates a show. Yes, he can create off the dribble, but more of his style is I'm going to get you open. I'm also going to hit an open three. Kind of going to run the show. And they kind of need that person who can beat somebody off the dribble or get it. And it's just added that he can play the post. He can also mesh with Halliburton in the transition. So I want to give it a stat. Toronto was second or first in transition points or fast break points. And Indiana was kind of number 1 or number 2. So they were like interlocked together. So that's kind of the reason they made that move because, can you explain to me what Pascal Siakam kind of goes and helps that fast break they run?
I think he's a very good fast break player. I mean, he has a really good build and I think good size. He's like 6'8", 6'9". He doesn't weigh too much. I think he can definitely get up and down the floor pretty easily for his size. So I think, especially with him and Hallie, like Hallie could just probably throw the ball down the court, baseball pass, and Pascal could definitely just catch it late up for 2. I think because Pascal is just overall a really good transition guy on offense and also could play transition defense.
I've heard some people say that he's not gonna change the defense, but he's at least somebody who's big, like as he said, strong, big, like somebody like
Yeah, I mean,
not the same defender as OG, I know, but
no,
somebody
yeah,
you just
I was about
see.
to say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think he could impact the game. Like, I mean, he's obviously not as good of a perimeter defender as OG, but I think he could, like a body like that where you just get that guy out of the court, get him into space with the offensive player. I mean, he's gonna like change up their game plan a little bit. I mean, he's gonna affect the game in a positive way for the Pacers.
They're so going to get wrecked defensively. So Pacers fans do not think that they're going to start doing what the Knicks did. They're not. But Pascal Siakam is somebody who, personnel-wise, you didn't have anybody before that. Who would you put on the best player? Aaron Nesmith can get down on defense. He's a very heady player. I really like him. He can get down, get under your skin. He's also very good. But again, like that's it. That's all you have. Like that's not going to work in the playoffs. So I think they improved that.
Yeah, definitely. Depth. That's all. That's all it's about.
And that's where the Pacers really pride themselves on is depth. And I think, and the Pacers pride themselves on depth. So, what do you think is going to be the destination for somebody like a DeJounte Murray?
DeJounte Murray. I mean, you're gonna look at a team that needs a point guard. Obviously, needs someone that could dribble, create things off the dribble. I mean, he's obviously a very talented player, but I mean, it's really hard to say. Like, obviously, I'm gonna say a contender that's looking to bolster their backcourt, their backcourt a little bit.
Or a team with Wemby who, is selling, but they're not selling. Like they're bad, but they need somebody with Wemby. They want to do anything.
The Spurs could be a good fit, but there's no way DeJounte Murray wants to go to a 15 seed. I don't think. Cause there's just no way he actually wants to go to that.
That's why I said he'll probably go to a team where backcourt help's needed, and he could. I mean, he's obviously a superstar player, so that type of thing could really obviously change the entire fortunes of the NBA possibly.
But again, like, I know they stink. I understand that. But wouldn't you want?
I
Wouldn't
would
you
love
not
them
want to play
Spurs,
with
yeah.
Wemby? Wouldn't you not want to play with Wemby and our Pop again?
It's more of a, I mean,
I
he
know it's
doesn't
more of
seem
a
like the
record
type
thing.
of guy where like he's not. For some reason, he doesn't really seem like the type of guy that
Like a
would want to
winner?
like. No, he's
Like-
the type of guy that would want to like wait in like for a rebuild. Like it's not an entire rebuild, but like Colton said, I don't think he
Yeah.
wants to go with someone like that's so far down the
He
standings.
seems
right now.
kind of like a win now
Yeah,
kind of guy.
Yeah, as I said, a winner. Like, he doesn't really care about stats, as he said.
Yeah.
They found an Instagram kind of DM of him saying that he doesn't care about stats. He doesn't care about your parlay. He doesn't care about that at all. The only thing he cares about is getting that win. I think any team, looks at that and is like, hey, like we're a winner and we really need somebody like that. So, what do you think is a sneaky team to get DeJounte Murray?
I mean, obviously, like I'm thinking like the Lakers right now, but like, aside like from them, I'm like trying to think of maybe like another team that could probably like use like a solid like point guard.
But again, my thing is like the Lakers don't have a lot to offer, and it's like I understand that, but the Hawks are not handicapped. They have 3 years of him on a really solid contract,
Yeah.
so they can zoom through the trade deadline. They don't need to make a trade, so it's like you're not gonna have to blow them away. It's not like you're trading for Jokic, but you're gonna have to make it like something that they would kind of blow them away, but like for DeJounte Murray, because I don't like they have all the leverage.
They definitely could be like, looking to trade him though. I mean, because like the Hawks, they're like a 10-11 seed.
Yeah.
They're like really scraping the play-in.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the
And
question.
it
for them to
wouldn't make
the
sense
trade.
for them to trade him too. Like I know he fits with the Spurs, he fits with Wemby, but like I don't think the Hawks would just say, oh, we're gonna go and trade him to a seed that's just as low as us.
Do you think Trae Young is a less is more player who needs like less stars, but he can do something with a Bogdanovich he can do something with Bogdanovich, Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey, Clint Capella, or Kongwu, instead of doing it with the DeJounte Murray.
I think it actually like, works better. I think what was it, 2021? I think
I-
they had a really good season.
Yeah.
My thing
Rockets,
about
I mean.
they're looking for.
I could see it.
But
Yeah, I
Van
could
Vliet and him in the. I don't understand that.
Scotty's on that team.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know why. It just would be fun to see him and Van Vliet on the court at the same time. I don't know why.
Yeah, superstar Jalen Green's also on that team, so I don't think they're looking to trade superstar Jalen Green. But I do think the Hawks in that playoff series, we always think about, that's playoff series. But give me a person that could have hunted Trae Young in that like that was a guard. First round, Elfrid Payne and Alec Burks is the backcourt. They were amazing defensively, but Alec Burks and Elfrid Payne, they're not gonna go at you and be like bang bang. I'm gonna give me Trae Young. I'm gonna take this. No, like their best player there was Julius Randle. And is Julius Randle gonna ever get Trae Young on him? Probably not. And that's my thing. And then you look at the mental breakdown from Ben Simmons. So I don't think that that's something that you need to look back to. But I think the Hawks definitely need to make moves.
Yeah,
And they need to
definitely.
work to
And
build
I mean,
around Trae Young, and then maybe in 2 years we'll talk about trading Trae Young. We'll mention it, but I don't think that's a thing now. So that's gonna do it. Do you have anything else to close out and say?
Not really. I mean, I guess you were right about Terry Rozier. It wasn't Donovan Mitchell. I mean, Donovan Mitchell. But I think we'll see in the coming trade deadlines February 8th. So I think we'll see some interesting moves before then, and I hope it's going to be fun for all NBA fans.
Okay, so that's gonna do it. And we have some girls varsity next. And
Coming
we'll
up at
see you.
4.
Yep, coming up at 4, and we'll see you guys at 4.